Lock it up. Light on set. Rolling. Sarah speeding.
33, bro, take 3. Mark.
Okay, here we go. Same thing, Victoria. That was awesome. And action.
Well done, Ryan. Thank you, sir.
What's going on, everybody? Hey, what's happening? It is Tuesday, May the 14th, 2024, 7:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is episode 258 of McRae Live. And we're going to talk some Friday the 13th tonight. Do it again! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, do it again. Yes, do it again. Do it again. Friday the 13th, there was news about it, of course. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. The internet loses its fucking mind. It never changes. It never changes. Hopefully everybody's doing well. If you want your question guaranteed an answer, you can send in a super chat. Of course, I will get to them at the end of the topic, towards the half hour or so, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, and then I will get to all your super chat questions and regular chat questions and member chat questions as well. What's going on, everybody? What's happening? What's shaking? What's doing? Yes, hope everybody is doing well. Davey Deathray in the chat said, I love seeing those behind the scenes. I'm glad you do, Davey. I'm glad you do, because I shared a video yesterday of some BTS of It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, and I encourage you all to, well, I shared it here, of course, but if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on the channel. There will be a lot of promotion over the next, the coming weeks and months leading up to the release of It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, because if we don't do it, nobody will. So we're not a theatrically released movie. We're not backed by a major studio. We don't have major distribution, so we have to do it. And we have to share and share and share and share and share. And we're very excited about it. The movie is in post-production right now. It is looking and sounding very good, if I do say so myself. And so very excited about where things are. And so, yes, the movie releases October 11th online. Of course, that is also the same day that Terrifier 3 releases. So I encourage you to go see Terrifier 3 and then come home and watch It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. There's no reason why you cannot watch 2 Christmas horror movies that day. And besides, ours is free. So just saying, we got Art beat there. But of course, we have to be free because we're not for profit. But nonetheless, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. There's a lot more where that came from. Let's just say that. There's a lot more where that came from. But we decided to put something out there and just kind of show a little bit of the behind the scenes and the workings of the set of It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. So, again, I mean, if you're into filmmaking, if you want to be a filmmaker, if you want to be a writer, if you want to, whatever the case is, those kinds of things you probably find interesting. This is a real film set with real crew, real actors, and it was exciting to be a part of it again, of course, and another great learning experience for me, and I just hope to continue to get better and better and better, and hone my skills and craft, and make connections, and just keep the train going. So there's a lot more where that came from. So there will be a lot more promotion of It's Me, Billy over the next coming weeks and months and things like that. It's the 50th anniversary this year of the original Black Christmas. We are releasing on the 50th anniversary release date of the original Black Christmas. Come on! We gotta get going! We gotta rev those engines, baby! We got to do it. So if you do follow me on social media, I always encourage to, help a brother out and share it, retweet it, whatever the case is. Because again, we're not Friday the 13th. We're not Jason. We're not Freddy. We're not Michael. Those things sell themselves in their sleep. Black Christmas is very niche. And of course, it never spawned a franchise. So any help we can get is greatly appreciated, especially because it is the 50th anniversary this year of the original. And we're very pleased with how things are looking in post and sounding in post. And it's darker and it's more ominous. And I think you guys are going to like it. Hopefully you will. But of course, it doesn't, stand on its own. You have to watch. What would be great? Watch the original Black Christmas, then watch It's Me, Billy, then watch It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to do it right there. The fucking trilogy. The trilogy, baby! The trilogy, baby! The Black Christmas trilogy. Yeah. Ow! Anyway, let's jump into the topic at hand today. Friday the 13th can be so much more and still deliver the goods. So let's jump into it and let's talk about, what the situation is here in regards to why I wanted to jump on and do this episode. And the reason for that is because, look, I understand what people are saying. And this is one of those episodes. These are one of those Dave McRae episodes where somebody who is incredibly insecure may take it the wrong way and think I'm being pretentious and condescending. And I certainly don't mean it that way if it comes across that way. But you've been warned. I'm hot right now. I'm on fire. And so I might come across as little, I'm just saying, right? Whatever that is. That's when I'm hot. I'm irritated. No. But the fact of the matter is that, and I wish my channel was larger. I wish I was like Dead Meat. I had 9 million, trillion, quadrillion, followers where every video I upload is like 500,000 views, because I think a lot of people need to hear this. I'm just saying. It never ceases to amaze me. So, Brian Fuller. Now, the last show I did on Friday the 13th, which was the last show, I believe, last week, I was talking about Jeff Schneider of the Schneider, not Insider. And it was we were unsure. And I even said in that show, don't be surprised if Brian Fuller backs out. Don't be surprised. I said, you can go listen to that show. It was before Brian Fuller made the announcement. I said, do not be surprised if in the next little bit, I didn't realize it was going to be the next day, but in the next little bit, in the not too distant future is what I said, that Brian Fuller will be back. He will have left the project. And I thought then, and I still think today, that there is a good chance that at least part of the reason why he left, although maybe not solely the reason, is because of those allegations against him. Now we haven't heard anything since. Maybe nothing is coming from. I don't know. But are we to believe that it's a non-factor in today's Hollywood? Probably not. It probably is a factor. Is it the driving factor? Who knows, right? Many things can be true at the same time. They can have creative differences, and A24 wants to go in a different direction, and they don't want to work with Brian Fuller because of the allegations. I mean, several things can be true at the same time. Who knows? But that's what I speculated on. I wouldn't be surprised if Fuller left. Bang, the next day he leaves. He makes a statement. I don't think the next day he decided to leave, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Fuller has been gone from the project for probably a little while. How long? I don't know. Few weeks, few months, who knows? And there may have been an agreement in place between A24 and Brian Fuller and Kevin Williamson. And, I don't know. There may have been a little bit of a something in place to say, hey, don't say anything until maybe we find your replacement. And that way A24 can deliver the bad news followed by the good news. Hey, Brian Fuller has left. But we've got so-and-so. Yay! You know what I'm saying? And, that's great PR, right? And maybe there's a little something in there because of that. Who knows? I'm not saying that's exactly what happened. I don't know. I'm just saying those things can happen. That can happen in the world of entertainment and show business. Nonetheless, he left. No surprise. No, I'm not shocked. Are you? I'm not shocked. But I was making a bunch of tweets about how, and it started, and this was before Fuller had left, I believe. Yes, it was. I had said in a tweet, and if you follow me on Twitter, and if you don't follow me on Twitter, can you follow me on Twitter, please? I have 4,903 followers. I'm 100 away from 5,000. Let's get me to 5,000, baby. I'd love it. Let's get me to 5,000. Why not? Nonetheless, so the situation is this. So I made a tweet, and I basically said, listen, it's not the 1980s anymore. If you want there to be longevity in a Friday the 13th series, it has to be more than Jason killing kids at a camp. Now, it is fascinating to watch the internet, okay? Take what I've said there, extrapolate it, okay, and make 3,721 leaps into an area where I wasn't insinuating at all, which somehow means, okay, let's turn Friday the 13th into The Shining meets, Hereditary or something, right? Because I had said it needs to evolve. Friday the 13th needs to evolve. And automatically a lot of fans, Friday the 13th fans, horror fans, get their knickers in a twist and their backs up against the wall. And you know what? To be fair, for good reason. I get it. But there's so much nuance at play here. Yes, I said the word I did, but it's true. If you follow me for any length of time, I've been saying since 2017, there is a war on nuance. It is in politics. It is in journalism. It is in fandom. Everything is black and white. Yes or no. It's so irritating. It's so irritating. But anyway, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm just saying it's irritating when there's nothing more irritating than, oh, so what you're saying is, what? Huh? What? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's like me saying, you know what? I'm not really a big fan of Halloween 5. Oh, so you fucking hate Don Shanks. What? I don't hate Don Shanks. Well, basically. It's like, am I the only one that finds that part of fandom excruciatingly painful? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Anyway, so nonetheless, told you I was today. But nonetheless, so here you have, people that are losing their minds over the slightest, what I would deem as an improvement in 2024 for Friday the 13th. Because here's the thing. No, I did not mean turning Friday the 13th into Hereditary meets The Exorcist meets The Shining, some sort of elevated, pretentious, condescending horror that's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is this. It is 2024, and whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not, you're about to. Friday the 13th, as you know it, as you love it, as you have grown to love it, that you have all the nostalgic feelings for, will not work today long term. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Dave, what about Terrifier? That's old school 80s, this and that and this and that and this. We're going to talk about that in a second because I disagree. There's a little bit of a hook with Terrifier and why Terrifier is doing so well. And we'll talk about that in a second. But nonetheless, the kind of horror that Friday the 13th is, was great for the 1980s. And because in the 1980s, ladies and gentlemen, and for those of you that are not old enough to remember, I was there. I was very young, but I was there. I was born in 1979. I was a young boy growing up through the 1980s. I remember it. And I remember it pretty well because I had older siblings. And so I might remember the 80s as a 7-year-old better than the average 7-year-old in the 80s. But nonetheless, that was horror. I mean, that wasn't all there was to horror, but in the 80s, those slasher movies, Friday, Elm Street, Chucky, they were getting nationwide widescreen release, like all over the place in 1,500 theaters or 2,000 theaters across the nation with trailers and marketing campaigns. I mean, everything that you get today, obviously, we've grown exponentially in terms of how things are marketed, but it was crazy. Slasher movies today, they're like B movies in the bottom of the barrel at Netflix or Walmart. I mean, horror has evolved so much from tits, teens, and blood. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's not where we are anymore. And the production companies and the studios are aware of that. They know that, and they want to go beyond that. They want to elevate it, not elevate it like elevate. Hello, I'm better than you. Not like that. Elevate it into something more than just this. Right? Something so cookie cutter and mainstream and cookie cutter and pedestrian. Okay, where it's just this little thing and that's all there is. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but the 80s Friday the 13th were a product of its time, a product of where horror was at that time, a product of the landscape of horror. Freddy and Jason were new. Those types of slasher movies were new. Right? Now, slasher type movies had been around for years. I mean, Psycho, you could argue is one of the first slasher movies, right? Peeping Tom, Black Christmas. But for all intents and purposes, the 80s golden age of slashers, right? From, the late 70s through to like 85, 86, it was new. It was a new thing. Everybody was getting in on it and wanting all that kind of stuff. And the only reason why Sean Cunningham made the original Friday the 13th, and he's out there having said this, is because of Halloween. It's because of Halloween. He wanted to see if he could replicate the success. And all these low-budget slashers, whether it's Splatter University or Don't Go Into the Woods or, Slumber Party Massacre or The Burning or whatever, throw it all in. They were all hoping to be the next Halloween, the next Friday the 13th, the next Elm Street, whatever the case is. And that is where horror was. Teens and tits and boobs and sex and unnecessary gratuitous gore and unnecessary gratuitous sex and sex for the sake of sex and all this kind of stuff. Today, that's not where we are. So when I get a response on Twitter or when I see people say things like, dude, all we want is just teens at a camp, Jason killing people. Okay, if that's all you want, okay. But you're not going to get Jason back and to stay back with just that, right? You know what I'm saying? There needs to be more meat on the bone. There needs to be more at play. We need to evolve what Friday the 13th could be. And that at face value on paper gets so many people irritated and upset because they automatically think I mean Halloween Ends. There is so much room to explore with Friday the 13th. So much story to tell. I don't want story. I don't want this. I don't want that. I just want Jason killing kids at a camp. Okay, but you know what's going to happen if they deliver that to you? It's going to come, it's going to go, and you'll never see it again. A la 2009. Okay? It's not like the lawsuit began in 2009. Right? They were having trouble getting a sequel made, and it made decent money that opening weekend, and then look at the drop off at week 2. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff doesn't really We've been there, done that. You've got all the old Friday the 13th, right? You can deliver something with meat on the bone that has a little more substance to it and still deliver Jason killing teens at a camp. All I'm saying, all Vincent DeSanti from Womp Stomp Films is saying, all a lot of people are saying is it has to be more than just that. If you want longevity, if you want Jason back and to stay, not to come and go like he did in 2009, to come and stay, whether that's 4 more movies, whether that's 5 seasons of a TV show, whether that's 5 seasons of a TV show and 4 movies, whether that's whatever, if you want Jason back, like back, then it has to be more than teens, tits, and blood, ladies and gentlemen. It has to be, because that's just not gonna, yes, that kind of movie would do well opening weekend, if that's, yeah, of course, because you're hungry for Jason, right? You're hungry for Jason, you want Jason, Jason's been gone for 15 years, Jason. So of course, but you can't then replicate that like they did with Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th 2, Friday the 13th 3, Friday the 13th 4, Friday the 13th 5, Friday the 13th 6, Friday the 13th 7, like that's not gonna fly today. At some point, there needs to be something more than just that. And it perplexes, although I understand it, I wish, and again, if I seem condescending and pretentious, I certainly don't mean to be. Like I said at the top of the show, I just said I was on fire and I was hot today. So if you are thinking that I'm not, I'm hot, I'm on fire. I'm you know what I'm saying? Whatever the hell that is, right? You know, it's just like a dolphin. I'm a dolphin. But it's just, it's a fascinating area of fandom to me. And I shouldn't be surprised, because really all social media, especially Twitter, has become, it's just an avenue for people to manufacture and pretend they're outraged. And sometimes they are really outraged, and most of the time they're not. But nonetheless, I think it's so important that Friday the 13th fans understand this. Production companies and studios are not, again, I'm not talking about removing kids and teens and blood at a camp. I'm talking about having it more than just that. I mean, take Friday the 13th Part 3. Just that today, it's not going to fly. It's just not going to, there's not enough there for today's, it's not just Friday the 13th fans they care about. It's the general movie-going audience. It's everybody. It's horror fans. It's everybody. They need more meat on the bone. That's what they need to do. And one of the areas, and I'm a big fan, and I've been talking about this since 2017, and I know that Vincent DeSanti is a big fan of this too, is Pamela Voorhees. Now, a lot of people immediately, again, get their backs up the wall. I don't want Pamela Voorhees. Jason Voorhees, hockey mask, Jason. Okay, but first of all, yeah, I hate Pamela Voorhees. She's boring. She's this. She's boring. She's had one movie, and she was only in the movie at the last 10 minutes, and she had like a flashback in the you know, the 2009 movie, and then she was like kind of there in Freddy versus. She's so underutilized. There's so much potential to put meat on the bone, to discover that relationship, and you know, to really kind of build a story around that. To go back, it's scary, it's creepy, it's bloody. You can, like, why can't we have it all? Why does it have to be either this or that, right? It can be both. And that's what I mean by, you know, the title of the show today, which is Friday the 13th can be so much more and still deliver the goods. I feel so passionately about this because, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, imagine that. Something that is scary, something that is bloody. You got to have that classic Friday the 13th gore with great kills. You know, and you can have some babes in there. You can have some babes in there, you know, but it's more than that. It feels less exploitative, right? And more mature, but still classy and scary and still very much Friday the 13th. It's not about removing the DNA in Friday the 13th, okay? It's not about Brandon Collins, $2 super chat, thank you, says, Friday the 13th, 2009 dropped 80% in second weekend. 80%! Why? Because there wasn't enough meat on the bone to get people to go again or to get new audiences to go. And that's your beloved remake, folks. And even that had a little more something. There was a guy looking for his missing sister. That's kind of new. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be more. It needs to evolve, right? And I said that, and oh man, and for those of you that responded to me very maturely and passionately but maturely, you're amazing, you're awesome, I love you guys, you're awesome. But man, did I get some response. I'm just like, what are you getting so angry for? And it's fascinating to watch people deconstruct what you've said and come to their own conclusions. Folks, again, all I mean is that there's got to be more meat on the bone, because production companies and studios, they're not going to make that movie today. They're not going to. That doesn't mean there will not be elements of that movie, but they're not going to make that movie. So when you say, and I take it at face value, when you say to me, I just want kids at a camp and Jason killing teens, when you say, I just want that, good luck. You're not going to get it. And you know who wasn't going to deliver it to you? Brian Fuller. So for all you saying, oh, fuck, Brian Fuller left, oh, that sucks. Well, he wasn't going to deliver that to you. Because if you read his tweet, he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I was looking to elevate and evolve and there was going to be so great and it was going to be this story and Pamela, all the things I was saying, basically, he said in his tweet. I don't know, Fuller. We didn't exchange notes. It's just, he gets it. Of course he gets it. I mean, he's a producer in Hollywood. He gets it. He understands in today's landscape with today's audiences in 2024, titifying all over the place, it's not going to fly. And a lot of actresses today, not all actresses, okay, again, not all actresses, but it is more difficult today than it was 45 years ago or 40 years ago to get a bunch of young actresses to titty it up, right? I'm not saying it's impossible. It happens. I'm just saying it's more difficult today. It's more frowned upon today than it was, like unnecessarily is what I'm saying, right? So that's more difficult. And women are more aware of that kind of thing, right? They have intimacy coordinators on set now and things like that. And, there's a lot of things, like you couldn't make Friday the 13th 5 today. Having a porn director make a Friday the 13th, it's just, we're not there anymore. Right or wrong, agree or disagree, we're not there anymore. And so when I hear people say, I just want this, and it's more frustrating when I professionally and politely kind of explain my position and they still, I was like, okay, well, good luck then. Good luck. Because if that's what you want, then Jason will come and Jason will go. Exactly like he did in 2009. If that's all you want. If that's all you want, then he will come and he will go. And that's it. And if you're okay with that, and you just want a one-off movie that's kind of like a nostalgia legacy piece, like, I don't know, whatever, okay, great. But if you want substance, if you want Jason to stick around, if you want a new franchise, if you want to like maybe remake Friday the 13th, right? And so, the first movie is called Friday the 13th, and then Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3 and 4. There has to be meat there. And then if you say, well, that's not Friday the 13th, well, then let's not make it. Let's not make it then. Let's put it to bed. Let's not make it and let's leave it to the 80s. I'd be okay with that, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? And if you want Friday the 13th, tits, teens, and blood, well, then go bust out your Blu-ray set and watch them, right? But today, it's just not gonna, you know what I mean? Now, let's talk about Terrifier, because I know that some people in my response on Facebook and Twitter, even some DMs, people have said, yeah, but Dave, look at Terrifier. Terrifier, hey, $250,000 Indiegogo campaign budget, made $11 million at the box office and minimal theaters. They're getting ready to crank out Terrifier 3 this year. It's going to blow up and be huge. I bet it's going to make even more. Terrifier is very 80s feel. What about, see, it's doing well. It's doing well. Yeah, but you see, no, yeah, but hang on. Hang on a sec here. Let's pump the brakes here for a second. Terrifier is not the same as Friday the 13th. Terrifier, and I say this with all due respect to the movie and its fans and to the filmmakers, because I don't have anything against it, but Terrifier, in my opinion, there's two things about it. Number one is it's it's not really 80s. I mean, maybe you could look at it as like 80s, like really B, C, low budget 80s, some of those slasher movies because of how gory they got, maybe. Like as soon as you're getting theatrical releases across the country and the MPA is involved, you know, the gore tends to be gory, but manageable. You know what I'm saying? And so maybe with a little more polish on it. Terrifier and Terrifier 2 were not rated by the MPA. I doubt Terrifier 3 will be as well because of the shtick. The reason why Terrifier is doing well is because, in my opinion, because of a shtick. Now, I say that not in a negative way, but because of a gimmick. And I don't mean like a, cheating or anything like that. I just mean because of a certain hook, because of a gimmick, a shtick, a hook, whatever you want to call it. And that is to be as bloody and as gross and as terrifying and as shocking as they possibly can within the means of their budget, within the means of their, effects budget. And each movie they have, they did the first one, there was the hacksaw. Now they got to do the second one and now the third one they got. And so people are going to these movies because of the shtick. And the shtick is basically, come watch our movie, right? It's like step right up, and let's see who can last without throwing up. You know what I mean? Or let's see who can, let's check out how crazy this installment's going to be, right? There's a hook to it. There's a shtick, there's a gimmick. Without that, if Terrifier was rated by the MPA, okay, the Motion Picture Association of America, if they had got first of all, Terrifier and Terrifier 2, those scenes that you all love would not be in the movie, or they would be really toned down, right? And then what's the point, right? Because I spat on the microphone. Because that is what Terrifier is. And all power to them, man. I think it's really cool. It's not my kind of horror, but there's an audience for it. They love it. I think it's amazing. I wish them no ill will. I know a couple of guys who, work on the films. All power to them. I wish them all the success in the world. But Terrifier and Friday the 13th, not really the same thing. Friday the 13th didn't have a shtick or a gimmick. Like, it's not like you were going to watch the movies to see, how crazy and grotesque it can be. No, you're going because of Jason, because you like Jason and it's kills and it's cool kills and things like that. It's mainstream polished horror, right? You know what you're going to get. With Terrifier, it's very different. So, and Terrifier to me, we can say 1980s, but really to me, it's more B-movie 1970s exploitative. Like it's more that splatter film than it is slasher movie. I know that it's called a slasher movie and we lump a lot of these types of, as soon as a killer has a bladed tool, it becomes a slasher movie. I get it. But if Terrifier had come out in the 70s, it would have been seen as more of a splatter film, right? You know what I mean? More of that low budget B-movie splatter drive-in movie that your parent, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like very, with the weird music. Yeah, the kind of shit I'm talking about, right? And that is what I've always seen anyway, especially from Terrifier 2 is more polished than Part 1 because obviously they had a bigger budget. When I first watched that first Terrifier film, it spoke to me very much as a 70s exploitative splatter type B movie. And I say that as a compliment. I don't say that as a negative. I say it spoke to me like that's what it was supposed to be, right? You know what I mean? And they did it very well. And so with Terrifier 2, of course, it's a bit more polished, but it still has that vibe to it. So there's a shtick, there's a hook to Terrifier that is different than the mainstream Friday the 13th movie. So I don't think it's the same thing at all. And so I don't necessarily think that because Terrifier is tearing it up at the box office and likely will with Part 3, that means that Jason killing kids at a camp, you can do 5 times over again and it will make, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. No, because there is no shtick with Jason. It is just Jason killing kids at a camp. Like that's my point, right? There is no gimmick. There is no shtick. There is no hook beyond just that. So, again, the reason why people are going to Terrifier is because, let's see how gross this one's gonna be. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think they're the same. Really, I don't think they're the same. And so I disagree with those that say, hey, if Terrifier is doing well, that means just a regular old school Friday the 13th, movie will do well, and you can make them over and over and over again, and they will. No, not at all. Not at all. Again, that doesn't mean that you couldn't deliver something like that out of the gate at first and have it do really well, of course, because people are hungry for Jason, and they want to see Jason on the big screen again. But I'm talking about longevity, preserving the integrity of the franchise for longevity, right? That's what I'm assuming everybody wants here. I'm assuming everybody wants Jason back, not Jason visiting. If you just want Jason to visit, well then yeah, let's deliver a fucking mainstream, fucking regular, old school, tits, teens, and blood Friday the 13th movie. No substance, no real story really. Let's just put teens at a camp, they're all beautiful, and let's just see where it goes. Okay, sure, yeah, and that'll likely do well. But Jason's not gonna stick around. He's not gonna stick around. And you'll find yourselves right back where you are at this very time. So that's why I feel so passionately about that. And again, if at any point in this video I came across in your mind as, condescending or pretentious, I don't mean to be. I just feel very strongly about this because I want fans to and I truly mean this. I truly mean this. This is where it's coming from. I want you to have Jason. I want you to have him back. I would love to see him back. And I know that if we just do the same thing over again, there's no longevity in that. And even the longevity that there will be or could be will be fleeting. I mean, it's not like it's going to be like 22 movies of, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? I mean, but if you want Jason more, around more than 2009, then there's gotta be a story here. And I think going back and telling the Pamela story and, seeing her as a young woman and, seeing that relationship. I mean, for Christ's sakes, the whole reason Jason exists is because of Pamela. I don't mean that she gave birth to him. I mean, the whole reason he's killing people at the camp is to avenge his mother's death. What do you mean she's insignificant? What do you mean who cares about her? What do you mean she's boring and dull? Are you crazy? The whole reason for Jason existing to kill is because of his mother. And so, what an incredible starting off point. Yeah, of course we're going to get to Jason eventually, but what an incredible opportunity to be able to, nurture that and create, look, I know, I get it. When you watch Friday the 13th today, it's in a movie that has no Jason. A lot of people don't like that Friday the 13th movie. They think it's one of the most boring because there's no Jason. Who cares about Pamela? She's not a great, Betsy Palmer, was a classic actress from, the golden age of Hollywood. I get it, but who cares? Yeah, but it's not Betsy. Look, nobody's saying it's going to be, imagine if Mia Goth, I know that Vincent DeSanti would love Mia Goth to maybe play Pamela. Imagine her as Pamela, right? Or imagine somebody else, like a terrific horror actress that comes in and makes you fucking, and I tell you, it's going to happen because it happens all the time, that all these fans get their knickers in a twist and their backs up against the wall and fuck this, they don't know shit. And then it's released and like, oh, that's fucking amazing. It happens all the time. And so all I'm saying is that I think there's an opportunity here to really flesh something out, put more meat on the bone so we can get 5 seasons and not 1 season. So we can get 4 movies and not 1 movie. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's something there that we can build upon. It's still Friday the 13th. It still feels very much like Friday the 13th. 100%. You don't remove the DNA of what a Friday the 13th movie is. You just add to it. You add to it and you build around it. Folks, the Friday the 13th films, especially those early films, we're just kids at a camp getting killed and tits and sex and whatever. And they're fun to watch. They're not deep. There's no layers or anything like that. Okay, that's great. But that doesn't mean that you can't add to that. Build upon that. Have that there, whatever that means for 2024, and help to grow that into something with more meat And so that you can care about these characters and what happens to them and see their arcs. Imagine Mia Goth playing Pamela Voorhees. Maybe you're like, I don't fucking care about Mia Goth playing Pamela. Okay, fine, forget it. But Mia Goth, she's pretty hot right now, right? And so and her role in X and Pearl is not that indifferent from what you would imagine, Pamela Voorhees maybe even being like. You know what I'm saying? So that's my whole point, is that there's opportunities here to really build something. And then you would look at Pamela Voorhees in a whole new light. You would look at Pamela Voorhees in a whole new way. See, right now, all you have is the old woman in, Freddy versus Jason, the old woman in the '09 movie, and Betsy Palmer, she wasn't old, but you know what I'm saying, right? She was probably in her late 50s, early, 60s. That's who you imagine. And the cheesy acting and the cheesy fight scene at the end of Friday the 13th. But that's not what it has to be. That's not where it has to stay. No, I'm talking about something that, again, like I said in my tweet, something that Friday the 13th fans didn't even know they were missing. Didn't even know they were missing. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean when I say evolve it. Right? That's what Brian Fuller meant when he meant elevate it, evolve it, right? Move it in a different direction, not Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends removed the DNA of what a Halloween movie is. Now, that doesn't mean that I think Halloween Ends is the worst in the franchise, because I don't. That doesn't mean that there aren't things about Halloween Ends I didn't like, because there are things I actually like. And you know that. If you follow me for any length of time, you know what they are. But Halloween Ends, in my opinion, is not the third installment it should have been in the trilogy. It's very divisive, right? I'm not talking about doing something like that, avant-garde for the sake of being avant-garde. Oh, let's just be, experimental for the sake of it. Oh, let's just do this like a pretentious painter standing at his canvas and, flicking paint and things like that. Or those pretentious painters that will take a blank canvas and paint like a big red dot in the center and be like, hey, don't you see, this is fucking incredible. And it winds up in some, like a museum at the Louvre or something. And it's just this red dot on a canvas, and it's like, but don't you see, it means this and it means that. So get the fuck out of here. I don't mean that kind of shit, these pretentious, condescending, avant-garde, or doing what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi. No, I don't mean that. I mean looking at what there is and building it up so it's more than just kids getting killed at a camp. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not going to survive today. It's just not. Again, that doesn't mean you can't get one movie out of it or one season out of it, because people are hungry for Jason. So you put out you could put out a Friday the 13th movie with Jason takes, fucking Puerto Rico, and it would do well opening weekend because people are desperate for Jason. But if you want longevity and you want to build on something and show Friday the 13th fans and the horror, community that there is still life in this franchise beyond what you thought it was, and it's still Friday the 13th, and it's still awesome, and you still get the or and you still get the blood and the kills, and who knows, maybe there's a boob or two in there for you boob or two guys. But it's more than just that. It doesn't feel exploitative. It doesn't feel, lowbrow, right? As a lot of those movies were. Of course, we don't think of them that way because we grew up with them, right? Like when I watch the movies now, I don't think of that. But, there's something that Tony Moran said, and I've said this before, and I don't think it's like this nowadays. And I agree very little with Tony Moran, as you know, if you know my history with Tony Moran. But there is something he has said when talking about when his agent called him about the offer for Halloween. I'm paraphrasing, but he went on to say, listen, in those days, like horror, especially low budget indie horror, a $300,000 budget was like, basically a step up from porn. Like, you know what I'm saying? And he's not wrong. In those days, low budget indie horror sometimes had borderline porn in it. Do you know what I mean? So, like there's always like horror in those days was a bit different, and it was a bit kind of, nowadays horror is it's more respected than it's ever been. I know that your favorite horror movies are still not winning Academy Awards, but at the end of the day, people like to blame the Academy, but you also have to understand how the Academy Awards work. And that is, well, did the studio submit the film? Like, the Academy is not a group of like 10 people where they look at all the movies over the years, over the year, and then these 10 people pick the movies they want to be nominated. That's not how the Academy works, right? The Academy is like, what is it, 10,000, 20,000? I can't remember now. Maybe it's more. Voting bodies from the many different, actors and directors and writers and producers and all that kind of stuff. But in order for a movie to be considered, the studio or the production company of said movie has to submit that movie for consideration. Now, so if like, the question is not, why didn't, Toni Collette get a nomination for Hereditary? The question should be, was she submitted? Because if she was, maybe she was, but if she wasn't submitted, well, that's not the Academy's fault, right? That's A24 then, right? I'm just trying to give an example of sort of how those things work. And so horror is more respected today than it's ever been. Horror is more respected today than it's ever been, although it still has a long way to go. It's always evolving. It's cyclical. What's old is new again. What's new is old. You know what I'm saying? It's always evolving. It's my favorite genre. It's probably your favorite, genre. And there's so many different subgenres. We love it. And the reason why I get hot and I get, cantankerous or just, I get hot, and some people may interpret that as condescending, which I don't mean to be, of course, is because I really care about this. I see it. I see it from fans. They deserve it. They deserve Jason back. They deserve Friday the 13th back. You do. 100%. But man, if they just do the same thing over again, he ain't going to be here long. And so whatever A24 is going to do, and we don't know what it is, but obviously there was creative differences. I still think, although I have no evidence of this, it's just a guess. I still believe that the allegations against Brian Fuller probably played a part in him leaving, although he probably left under his own volition and yada, yada, yada. But whatever A24 is going to do, it's A24. So the likelihood, maybe they're not going to do the exact same thing that Fuller wanted to do, but it's unlikely that A24, being A24, is going to just deliver, teens, tits, and blood. I mean, I doubt that's going to happen. So I'm hoping that A24 is going to deliver something that has more meat on the bone, right? And listen, I know that they can be accused of being pretentious and condescending because of their elevated, but listen, they deliver a lot of good shit. There's some hit and misses like everybody, but they deliver some good stuff. And, if they can make Friday the 13th, and still feel like Friday the 13th, and still, let those diehard Friday the 13th fans of old know that we love you. You're welcome here. We got you. We got your back. But we're also going to add this to it to kind of, bring some new fans on board, but also add some meat on the bone. Where it's like, oh, fuck, this is dark. This is intense. This is fuck, man. Hey, guys, did you see the first episode? No, you haven't seen the first episode of Crystal Lake. You haven't seen the first episode of Crystal Lake? Dude, it was like 62 minutes long, and fuck, man. I was like right on to the next episode. Like I was like it ended. I was like, fuck, I gotta go. Like, no one's gonna care. No one's gonna care that there's more meat on the bone, or that the first season's about Pamela, or that if it's really good and you see where it's going. You know what I'm saying? No one's going to care. I'm telling you, no one's going to care that it's about, and I'm not saying that that's what A24 is going to do. Maybe they're not going to do that. Maybe they're just going to do Jason. But I would love to see something of Pamela. Start from the very beginning, build us up, see that relationship, make us understand that a bit more. Who is Pamela? How fucking badass can she be? Because right now you're thinking Betsy Palmer. And no disrespect to Betsy Palmer, but that's what you think of. You think of the one Friday the 13th movie you probably don't like, or at least like the least, and Betsy Palmer and the cheesy fight sequence between Adrian King. That's what's in your mind when you think Pamela Voorhees. But it doesn't have to stay there. It doesn't have to stay there. It can be Mia Goth as a young Pamela, Voorhees, and she's fucking shit up. And she's a functioning psychotic. She's like Agnes in It's Me, Billy. Or she's, she's a functioning member of, society, but she's fucking crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then you're watching it and you see young Jason and the town, of Crystal Lake, and you see where it's going and it's building, and each episode is dark and awesome, and that can be done. And it's very Friday the 13th. Very Friday the 13th. 100%. It can be done. I am a firm believer that it can be done, and I will continue to hold out hope that it will be done. So anyways, before I jump over to the chat room, I just wanted to say all that, get that off my chest. Again, for those of you that responded to my tweet, thank you. Those that responded professionally, and most of you all did, but there was a few people that DM'd me and responded, then deleted their tweet, and who just didn't quite get what I was saying, and I understand. Look, it's a hot topic. It's a hot time right now, for Friday the 13th fans, and you haven't had a Jason film since 2009. And I mean, I get it's 15 years. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer now. But if you want Jason back and not just visiting, put that on a t-shirt. If you want him back and not just visiting, then there's got to be more meat on the bone to help sustain the longevity of whatever it is they're going to do. Because how great would it be if a Crystal Lake TV series, if you got like 5 or 6 seasons out of that? Imagine that. Imagine 5 or 6 seasons, out of a TV series that each episode was like 42 minutes long. The first season, is Pamela, and then at the end of that season, she's killed at the lake by the counselor, and then Jason's coming back for season 2. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, you could totally do it. You could absolutely do it. And if it's done well and the right people are involved and they have the right passion and respect for the source material, and for the DNA, they can deliver something that can make you go, yes. Yes, and not to toot my own horn here or anything, but like what we did for Black Christmas, like when what Vince has done, with Never Hike Alone. It can be done. You've got to have the right people involved, and you have to have the right people who understand the source material. But it can be done, and I understand the fans' trepidation. I understand their skepticism. I understand their pain. I really, really do. Listen, try being a Halloween fan. And I know you could say, well, you just had 3 Halloween movies. I get that. But listen, all the different masks, all the different timelines, all the different, you got Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks and oh God. I mean, just try being a Halloween fan. The Man in Black and what the hell is a thorn and cult and So, we Friday and Halloween fans, we can bond. I get it. But I think it's incredibly important that it's got to be more than just that, folks. It's got to be more than just that. But if that is what you want, even after everything I've said here today, you are not convinced by my passion, you are not convinced by my enthusiasm and my energy for how I feel about this, fair enough, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, fair enough. But if that is what you get, if A24, for whatever reason, decides to go against their own sort of motto and deliver just a run-of-the-mill pedestrian Friday the 13th series, then you'll get 1 season out of it, and that'll probably be it. Because there's just not enough there to sustain general interest. So there's got to be more, folks. There's got to be more. Okay, let's jump over to the chat room and see what all of you are saying now. Get your super chats in, your member chats in. Let's see what you are all saying in regards to the topic today at hand. We've got Ludicrous. Ludicrous. I think that's it. 78 sends in €5. Says, what is left to do with Jason at this point? We put him on a plane. Yeah. And call it Jason Takes the Sky. That's my point, right? Is that it needs to, the meat on the bone is I believe going back and telling the Pamela Voorhees story and setting it up from a new base camp, setting it up in a different way and building that anticipation and that hype for Jason Voorhees to return. That's what I believe. VO Trapper sends in a very generous super chat of $20. Thanks, buddy. Says, what if Friday the 13th is used for a spiritual successor instead? My take would feel European, focused more on survival experience than pleasing the audience per se, and aim for a unique view on the Jason archetype. A spiritual successor instead. I see. Well, yeah. Well, then you wouldn't just call it Friday the 13th. You'd call it something else. It would be like how, In a Violent Nature is very, kind of has a gimmick to it, has a shtick to it. And that gimmick and that shtick is from the perspective of the killer. I mean, look, people who are going to go see In a Violent Nature are not going to go see In a Violent Nature because they think the movie looks phenomenal. I'm not trying to disrespect the movie. It's a Canadian independent film shot here in Ontario by Canadian indie filmmakers. So shout out to my Canadian independent film brethren. So I don't mean that that's bad, but I'm just saying there is a shtick, there is a gimmick, a hook to In a Violent Nature. And that hook is, hey, this is a slasher movie, but it's from the perspective of the killer. So we're following the killer through the woods and all that kind of stuff. And so you are generally wanting to go check this movie out because of that. What is this like? I've never seen this before. This is interesting. I want to go check it out, right? And then hopefully it's a really good movie. So you could look at In a Violent Nature as some sort as a spiritual successor to Friday the 13th in some ways. I mean, it's, the character is very Jason, he's in the woods, he's killing people and, so I guess, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh. And says, are you good at keeping secrets? Well, sure. But you're here now going to tell everybody. Funny story. On Mother's Day, my mom's best friend, her husband and I planned a surprise dinner for my mom. Oh, I see what you're saying. However, the husband accidentally let it slip. Ow! Am I good at keeping secrets? I am good at keeping secrets, Josh. But what I am not good at is when I have a surprise for somebody, I've purchased something for them or, whatever the case is, I am so excited to give it to them that I usually end up giving it to them early, before I should. And just because I'm so excited and I want to give it to them, but keeping secrets, yeah, I'd say that I'm probably pretty good at that. Josh McKenna follows up with $1.99, says, have you heard of the Netflix show Baby Reindeer? I have. I've yet to check it out, but I have heard of it. Carl Weidman sends in $10. Thank you, Carl. And says, I've only watched the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things. I always thought each season should have dealt with the different characters and supernatural stories. Well, Carl, that I believe, I stand to be corrected, but I believe that was the original idea. That was the original idea for Stranger Things, was to do a different set of characters and a different set of supernatural events. However, that first, season was so successful and people loved those characters so much that they decided to bring them back. I would watch season 3 and 4. Season 1 and 2 are quite similar to each other. Season 3 and 4 are very different than season 1. Season 1 is still my favorite. But yeah, I would check it out if I were you. I think you would enjoy them. Brandon Collins, of course, I got that one a bit earlier. Yeah, 80% drop in the second weekend. That's not good. Not good. James Bentony sends in £4 and 99 pence and says, hey Dave, where's the best to contact you directly with a proposal? It's regarding It's Me Billy Chapter 2. I would just send a DM to my Many Things Dave McRae Facebook page. So if you go to Facebook and you type in Many Things Dave McRae, that Facebook page there, not my personal one, but my that one. I think we got 5,000 followers, I think. Send it there. Thanks, James. Carl Weidman sends another $5. Thank you, Carl. And says, what if the camp counselors and the campers were in danger by Jason? I don't feel the kids were in any real danger in Friday the 13th, Part 6. Well, that's Part 6. How do you feel about them in all the other movies? Well, sure. But what's the story, right? What's the plot? what's the motivation? Why is Jason back? Like, if this is a new Jason, right? And that's another thing too, folks, that you have to remember. If this is a new Jason, right? I mean, it's not associated with the original Friday the 13th movies. The last thing personally I want to see is a quick prologue, a 5-minute prologue like they did at the beginning of Jason 2009, Friday the 13th, 09, where you kind of just get like, oh, Jason Voorhees, camp counselor, mom, oh, mommy, and now I don't want that, man. Pamela Voorhees deserves more than that. And I know you're thinking, oh, fuck Pamela, she's boring and dull. That's because you're thinking of Betsy Palmer and Adrienne King and that one Friday the 13th, film you don't like. And don't think of that. Think of what Pamela Voorhees could be, not what she currently is, what she could be. And always keep in mind that the sole reason Jason exists to kill is to avenge his mother's death. Now, of course, he's done it over and over and over again. He could probably stop now. But that's the whole point, right? So there is way more meat on the bone with Pamela Voorhees than people give her credit than people give her credit for sure. But I would say that, again, the principle still exists. Where do we go from there? So what? They're just going to do that for every season? They're just going to do that for every movie? There's got to be more, man. And I know fans are scared. They don't want, a repeat of Halloween Ends. They don't want Jason to go away. I get it. I understand it. But the irony here is that if they just deliver nothing but an 80s Friday the 13th movie, man, Jason will be gone faster than you can say police brutality. Vacation reference. It's true. Antonis Andriotis sends in a very generous super chat of $19.99. Thank you, Antonis. And says, hey, Dave, The Strangers Chapter 1 going to come out in theaters over there in Canada. Of course, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, we get everything that you guys get. And if so, how are you going to see it? How old were you when you became obsessed with Michael Myers? Thank you, Antonis. So, so just so you know, the domestic box office is the United States and Canada. So whenever you hear movie pundits or entertainment news or Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, whatever the case is, whenever you hear anybody say at the domestic box office, such and such movie made this, they are referring to the United States and Canada. Now, it doesn't include Mexico, but it is the domestic box office is the US and Canada. So what is released in the US is always released here in Canada on the same day because we are the same market. And so yes, it will be released here on the same day that it releases there. Now, when you go overseas to the European market, that's different. But here we are the same. And am I going to go see it? Probably not. I did see the first Strangers, the 2008 one. I did see that in the theater. This one doesn't really interest me. It just looks like a complete remake of the original, and I just have no interest in seeing it. So that doesn't mean it's not going to be good. It just doesn't really, I'm like, even right down to the, why are you doing this? Because you're here. I mean, even right down to that line. I'm like, okay, even though it's a slightly different take on the line. But anyway, yeah, no, I probably won't. And how old was I when I became obsessed with Michael Myers? Oh, God. I got into Michael Myers when there were only 2 Michael Myers movies. So this would have been like probably 84, 85 when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And it's thanks to my brother Neil. He got me into Michael Myers. Yeah, probably around like 84, 85, 86. Probably 84, 85, somewhere around there. So yeah, I was about 5 or 6 years old. Brandon Collins sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Brandon. Says the show should evolve much like Bates Motel did for Psycho. There was plenty of killing in that, but it had a multi-season arc that was compelling. Great example, right? And yeah, exactly. It needs to evolve. No one is saying, certainly I am not saying, and nobody I know is saying that Friday the 13th has to be, Hereditary meets The Shining with all these cerebral layers and tons of cinematic language. And That's not what I'm saying. And I don't think that's what anybody who agrees with me is saying. We're just saying that Friday the 13th movie, yeah, that one, part 3, part 4, part 5, that movie right there, like just that movie. You can't do that now. Like you just can't. It's a product of its time. Horror has evolved beyond that. Even slashers have evolved a bit beyond that. And so it's important that they, especially in the structure of a television show, right? Because we have to think of that too, especially in the structure of a television show where you can flesh things out more. I mean, if you have 8 one-hour episodes, that's an 8-hour movie, right? So you've got to flesh things out, create these big arcs and all this kind of stuff. And there's such a wonderful opportunity at play to be able to do that. So listen, man, I hope I didn't turn any Friday the 13th fans off here today, again, by my passion for this subject. But believe it or not, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. I'm a Friday the 13th fan. I want Jason back. But I know in this day and age, that movie ain't going to happen. Oh, you can do that movie. Oh, sure you can. Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. But it would be, it's not going to come from a major studio or production company. I mean, look, Damien Leone, the writer-director of Terrifier, right? After Terrifier 2 was such a box office hit, relative to its budget, of course, $11 million maybe 15 million, maybe 250. That's huge. That's amazing. It's awesome. He had meetings with several studios that were interested in Terrifier 3. But Damien Leone ultimately decided to not go with a major studio that the money would already be there. Oh my God. He ultimately decided not to do that and go more the independent production company route because he knew that the studio, and this is apparently why, so I've been told, the studio said, listen, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to help you produce Terrifier 3, but we can't do it like that. Like, how wild and crazy and exploitative and splatter and 1970s wild, crazy, taboo shit this is. Yeah, we can't do that. Like, we're going to have to really tone it down because the MPA is not going to approve this. Like, they're going to give us like an NC-17 or like a fucking borderline XXX something. I don't know what the hell's going on here. Like, there's no way we're even going to get an R, right? They knew that. And Damien Leone said, yeah, but that it's not Terrifier. And that's what I mean by the shtick. That's what I mean by the hook. That's what I mean by the gimmick. I don't mean those words. Some people can take those words gimmick, shtick as like a bad thing, and I don't mean them as a bad thing in this instance. I just mean a hook. There's a gimmick to it, and that is wild and crazy gore, gratuitous blood. Oh my God! Like, I mean, that's the hook, right? And otherwise, if it wasn't about that, Damien Leone, I imagine that Damien Leone would have been like, yeah. Oh, where do I sign? Right? But he knew it would remove the identity of what Terrifier is and was. And he didn't want to do that. And good for him. I would have made the same choice. 100%. Especially now that Terrifier 2 was such a huge hit. He doesn't need them because of the word of mouth and the fandom and having Bloody Disgusting involved and the independent production company now involved. He doesn't need them. He doesn't need them. They're going to distribute it in theaters across the country and in Canada. It's going to make maybe 40, 50 million. Who knows, right? So good on them for doing that. Good on them for doing that. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's a very different world. Member Chad comes in from Ethan LeBlanc. Hey, Ethan, what's going on? Been a member here for 6 months. Says, hey, Dave, do you think you'll see Alien Romulus in the theater? And are there any other coming up that you know of that you're for sure wanting to see in the theater? Stay sharp. Thanks, Ethan. Alien Romulus in theater? Yeah, I could see myself seeing that over in A Violent Nature for sure. Yes, I could see that. Any other horror movies, you mean, or just movies in general? Let me just take a quick Google search here and see if there's any. Let me see here. I don't know. A lot of these movies have already passed. I do want to see Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney. I don't think that's in the theater anymore, though, but I do want to see that. I saw Abigail, loved it. I really loved Abigail a lot. I should buy that. I do want to see The First Omen. I've yet to see that. And yeah, that's all at the moment. Like, there's so many, I'll be honest with you guys, most horror movies that I see advertised don't really do much for me because they all just kind of look one and the same. Like The Exorcist, like I love the premise of that new one with, what's his face? Russell Crowe, not the Pope's Exorcist, but that new Exorcist one that he's in, where he's on the set of a movie being made and weird things happen. I love the premise, but the trailer itself, I was like, just looks like a standard Exorcist movie. So I don't know. It takes. I'm very picky, man. I don't know if it's because I'm jaded or I've been just burned way too many times. I'm not sure, but it takes a lot sometimes. It takes a lot for me to get out to the theater to see a horror movie. Like the Abigail trailer, I thought just looked so great. And that's what ultimately got me to the theater. Okay, have I got all the super chats? I think I have. I think I've got them all. I believe I do. Justin Valdera says, Dave, who would you cast as Pamela Voorhees? A big name or an unknown actress? I think someone like Rachel McAdams would be an interesting choice. Yeah, Rachel would be an interesting choice. And she's certainly, her career is kind of, I don't want to say fallen off, but I don't hear too much of her at the moment. Rachel McAdams would be interesting. I do like the suggestion of Mia Goth. I think that would be a fascinating take. I even think maybe even listen, I know she's known for her boobs at the moment, but I think even a Sydney Sweeney might be an interesting choice. And it's just purely because of her face. She just she has a certain look to her that I think, I don't know how to describe it. Like she's like, she's very attractive, but she just kind of has like this. It's not like she's good looking, but she's not so good looking that she's. And I don't mean that as a disparaging remark. I mean that as just like And you look at these things. I mean, when you're a producer, when you are a casting director, when you're writing a film, I mean, this is show business, right? And this is the realities of how these things go. I don't say this as a disparaging remark. I'm not saying she's ugly, because she's not. She's actually very attractive. What I'm saying? But there's something about her look. There's something about the look of Sydney Sweeney that I think would be an interesting choice. It's like Mia Goth. Mia Goth isn't classically beautiful, right? But she's not unattractive either. She's good looking, right? But there's a certain look to Mia Goth. You know what I mean? She's got, I think what it is Mia Goth has, instead of having the bolder features, right? Like a stronger nose, a stronger jaw, say like I'm trying to think of somebody, but anyway, like a Julia Roberts or something. She has more cuter features, right? And Sydney Sweeney is similar in that regard. Ali Girl says Margot Robbie can play crazy good. Yeah, I think Margot Robbie might be, although it depends, right? At face value, I think she might be too classically beautiful. But hey, maybe not. There's a certain, because you look at Pamela, you look at Betsy Palmer, right? And Betsy Palmer had that cuter features, sort of smaller nose, smaller features kind of thing. And that doesn't mean that the Pamela Voorhees that you're now has to be like that at all. It doesn't mean that, at all. It could be anybody. But there's a few people there that might be interesting. And I could see Sydney Sweeney playing, even, what's her face from, Ready or Not? Samara Weaving. Again, look at Samara Weaving, right? More of that cuter feature sort of look. Samara Weaving might be interesting. Like somewhere in that ballpark, right? Mia Goth, Samara Weaving, Sydney Sweeney, Margot Robbie, maybe like a out in left field sort of thing, maybe. But it can like, yeah, it can be there. Yeah. There's definitely, some interesting, options there for sure. For sure. All right. Rob Thidoff says, Dave, in my opinion, we do not have great drama and thriller movies anymore. What do you think has hurt storytelling? I think too many comic book movies and CGI has contributed. Well, I do agree with that. I think, obviously, as a non-comic book movie, I'm not gonna say I'm not a fan, but as I'm not, again, I've only seen like 3 or 4 of the Marvel films, but I would say that they do dominate. They dominate the movie punditry. They dominate the fandom. I mean, it's just huge. I disagree. I get what you're saying, but I think it's more about mainstream. The great dramas are still there. There are some great dramas and thrillers that do exist, but they're not necessarily getting mainstream theatrical releases, right? And sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't do well. Or they'll just go right to Prime. There's some great Amazon Prime dramas, Yeah, there's just, I get what you're saying, but yeah, no, look, the superhero genre has dominated and it will continue to dominate. And for people like me that are not so into it, it can be a little exhausting. But I celebrate too that there are so many fans out there that love that kind of stuff and that just love it and love it, love it, love it, love it. So I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh, and says, what qualities does an it girl have like Jenna Ortega? How can you tell if someone is an it girl? Yeah, it's interesting. I remember I had never heard of Jenna Ortega. If you follow me for any length of time, you might remember this. Tony and I watched Tony Michaels, who's my co-host of Two Dudes, who's on a bit of a hiatus again because of how busy he is. He and I watched Scream 5 in 2022. And we watched it here live on the channel for an episode of Two Dudes. Neither of us had seen it. And we watched it. Now, I had never heard of Jenna Ortega. I'd never heard of her. I had never seen her before. I didn't know who she was at all. No idea. Never heard of her. Could be an age thing. I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not hip to the teens. But I'd never heard of her. And watching that movie live on the channel, you can go and verify this for yourself. Watching that movie, I say right on that channel, I say it maybe during the movie, but certainly at the end of the movie, I said, this girl is going to be a star. I said, there's something about her. I said, she's beautiful. Yes, she is, of course. But there's a presence in her eyes. There's something about her. I can't quite, it's instinctual. I can't quite place it or I can intellectualize it, but I can't quite come up with the right word. There's something about, she's talented, but and I think what it is she has there's a naturalness to the way she delivers lines. There's nuance, just a little micro nuances that are in her performances that would not be in the script, are things that an actor is instinctually doing to give the performance color. We do that all the time in voiceover and certainly in on camera as well, right? Little things like an inexperienced actor, and certainly when you're working at that level, very few actors are inexperienced, but just to sort of paint a picture of what I'm trying to say, to give you kind of an example, in voiceover, for example, when I'm doing animation, which I was doing this morning, doing another few episodes for Lana Longbeard. But for example, the script, like my line might say something like, the direction might be, you're frustrated, da ba 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 ba. And the line is, I can't believe we have to go here. how come we have to do that? Let's say that's the line. I can't believe we have to go here. How come we have to do that? And instead of me just saying, I can't believe we have to go here. How come we have to do that? Which an inexperienced actor may do, right? They're reading the line as is. To give it color and to give it nuance and to give it authenticity, a more experienced actor may naturally look at that and suddenly, not suddenly, but look at that line, listen to the direction, and dive in and read it as, I can't believe we have to do that. I mean, how come we got to do that? I don't know. And add all those, I don't know. Is not in the script. It's not in the script. And with animation, you see, 9 times out of 10, the dialogue is recorded first. So all the voice actors record all the dialogue first, and then the animators will animate to the dialogue. So they animate the lip flap to the dialogue. So unless you're doing ADR and you're dubbing for a series that was in another language, or you're dubbing for a series that was in another accent, if you are the first, then you are definitely doing it first. And so those little things, it's just maybe it's not the best example, but hopefully you know what I'm saying, right? So in her performance, there's little things that I think there was something about her, a naturalness to her look, a naturalness to her performance, a believability to the performance. And I know that sounds really weird because it's Scream. It's not like she's in some epic drama. It's Scream. There was something about it. I felt it. And I said, this girl's going to be a star. This was before Wednesday. This was before X. This was before, Beetlejuice 2. I just said this girl's going to be a star. And then shortly thereafter, that year, here comes X. She was in 666, I believe, too. Was it 666? Here comes Wednesday. I'm fucking incredible. Beetlejuice 2. Now she's doing Wednesday season 2. She's huge. She's one of the hottest, and I mean hot as in demand. She's one of the hottest actresses in Hollywood right now. And she's young. She's like 21, 22. And so I don't know specifically, but certainly for me, I think it is a naturalness. It is a believability and a naturalness to the talent. Effortless. And just an effortless believability at a high level. And I know that might sound very weird because you go, really? In Scream 5? You know what I'm saying? I know, it's crazy, but there was just something about her, and I said that. And I wasn't wrong. I mean, listen, she could have come and gone. She could have been in Scream, and then maybe she went back and did some small... No, she blew up after that. And I had no idea who the hell she was. I'd never heard of her. So, yeah, I think a natural talent, a natural authenticity to the talent, a believability to it, a naturalness to it, I think is part of it. Movie chat and more. Part 2 sends in £5. Thanks, Richard. Says, horror makers don't care about Gen Xers like me. It's all complicated plot twists and convoluted backstories a la Abigail, a la Late Night with the Devil. Well, Richard, I can't say that I disagree that Abigail was complicated. I disagree that Late Night with the Devil was complicated. I don't agree with that. But maybe Richard, you're somebody that just wants icing, and maybe you don't need cake. You just want icing. You just want to eat the icing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Listen, there are people in this world, and Richard, maybe you're one of them, that they don't want to watch movies with any twists. They don't want to watch movies with any sort of layers. They just want to sit on the couch, have their beer, eat some Cheetos, and just turn off their brain for 90 minutes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, those movies, generally speaking, don't make money today. They did 45 years ago because 45 years ago, that was mainstream horror. But today, that's not the case. So it is unlikely that you will see a Friday the 13th with Jason Voorhees like that. And do I think that they don't care about Gen Xers? No, I think they do. But they're trying to appeal to everybody. Right? And that can be difficult to do. But do I think they don't care about Gen Xers? There is some truth to what you've said. They don't. What they don't care about is not that they don't care about Gen Xers. What they don't care about, and I'm a Gen Xer, so I get it. What they don't care about is, they don't care about the anger that will often come with not doing what you want them to do. They don't generally care. Now, people could say, yeah, but look what happened with Sonic and look what happened with the Snyder Cut. And it's like, well, as I've said before, the Snyder Cut was a matter of just good timing. And do I think there was anything virtuous about what the head of Warner Brothers did with the Snyder Cut? And what do I mean by that, by virtuous? Well, I mean pure, is in the sense of, okay, we're going to give you the Snyder Cut. We're going to spend an extra $70 million and give you the Snyder Cut because you guys cried out because you deserve it. That's not what happened. Oh, sure, you guys cried out. Oh, yeah, sure. And you made a lot of noise. Oh, yeah. But he also put the movie behind a paywall, and that paywall was HBO Max. So you still had to pay for it. And they used the Snyder Cut. They used it as the catalyst to get people to join HBO Max. There's nothing pure about it. It's business. It's just great business. If HBO Max was not there, if HBO Max was not getting ready to launch, do I think there's a really good possibility that you would not have seen the Snyder Cut? Oh, yeah. Remember, two things can be true at the same time. Hey, we got these annoying fuckers over here saying, release the Snyder Cut. Hey, you know what we could do? We could actually maybe put some money into this thing and then just use it to fucking get people to go over to HBO Max. And that's what they did. You know, and I love when the head of Warner Brothers at the time came out, we listened to the fans. Oh, shut up. If it was really just about the fans, if it was really pure and virtuous, they would have done it and given it to you for free. They would have said, here's a link, download it. Happy holidays. You know what I mean? But they didn't do that. They didn't do that because it's show business. It's always about making money. Always. That doesn't mean that they don't want to please the fans. That doesn't mean that they don't want to, do something that the fans will enjoy, and they're not thinking about the fans, and that the filmmakers themselves are often not fans. It doesn't mean that. It just means at the end of the day, this is show business, and when you're working at the studio level, you have to. There's so many decisions that are made by committee. There's shareholders that, the studios have to appeal to. There's too many chefs in the kitchen. There's so much red tape. There's so many things going on. So, it's not just this group of angry guys, on a board with a hammer saying, we fucking hate you. Not at all. Not at all. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are moving. So do they hate Gen Xers? No, but they won't, they will only listen to the fans if it means that I don't even want to say that. Listen to the fans. They're not listening to the fans. What about Sonic the Hedgehog? Well, that's also because it was in post-production. Do you think if they had released the movie like that, they would go back and change it? No. I see these petitions online. You need to redo Halloween Ends. These people, oh my God, do you think they're going to do that? They need to redo the Star Wars sequel trilogy. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen, baby. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Anyway, Oliver Mercer sends in £5. Thanks, Oliver. How about Carey Mulligan to play Pamela? She has an interesting look to be believed. Carey Mulligan. I'd have to look and see what she looks like. But maybe, yeah. I can't put a face to the name yet. I got to check it out. All right, let me see here. Have I got all the super chats? I think I have, ladies and germs. I just want to make sure I've got everything. I think I have, anyway. Oh, VO, hang on, a super chat. I did not see this. Thank you, VO Tripper. $5. By the way, I have a film recommendation for you. Have you seen Downrange 2017? I thought it was very good and surprisingly underrated. I have not. I'll have to put it on the list. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Let me see here. Scrolling through. Descartes Guru _86 says, what if Mrs. Voorhees was the one that actually drowned Jason in the camp lake because she's secretly psycho? As years go on, she became the main camp owner and Jason was never dead. You know what? It's a fascinating take. It's a fascinating take. I don't know if that would be something that they would be really, if that would be something they would be willing to take a risk on, but I really like your thinking. And what I mean by that is you're thinking outside the box. You're doing exactly what needs to be done, right? You're thinking outside the box. What about the Christies? What was the relationship with Pamela and the Christies, right? You know, what about I mean, Pamela was a cook there at the camp, right? Or something. Like, what about, like, there's so much that can be explored. And I know that, but this idea that it needs to just be Jason killing people at a camp, you've got it. Why do you need a new version of that? You have those movies. You have 12 of those movies. Well, Space wasn't in the camp, but you certainly have at least 6 of those movies. Or 7 of those. I mean, then go watch them. I don't know, man. And I feel bad saying that because I know that I know how it can come across. And I don't mean it to come across like that, you know, but I just think there's so much opportunity here. There's so much opportunity. Like I felt about the anthology series with Michael Myers and why I wish they would have saved the Corey Cunningham story for a jumping off point for a Haddonfield anthology series. What a great story. You know what I mean? And you could have had Jamie Lee Curtis in the fucking series. You could have had Andy Matichak in the series. You could have just told that story. Oh my God. You know? Crazy stuff, folks. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Scared Straight Production says, thought 6 was the only one that had kids, huh? Other than Tommy Jarvis. Yeah, well, when I say kids, I mean, you know, teenagers, early 20s. But yes, you are correct that Friday the 13th Part 6 was the only one that had like children. Yes, at a camp where well, I don't even think it was Crystal Lake. I don't think. Was it? Was it Crystal Lake? Maybe it was. Maybe it was. I can't remember. Hawkheads will let me know. But yeah, it was it, you know, it's cool. It's cool. But there's, you know, like we've got them. Like, I'll be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay. And you know that I always am. Whatever they do with Halloween, I have no interest at this moment. Ask me again in 10 years. Maybe I'll change my mind. But at this moment, I have no interest in rebooting Halloween as a TV series or as a film franchise with just a story that we've seen twice now, right? We saw it in 78. We saw it in Rob Zombie's 07 from a completely different perspective. But the story being Michael Myers, 6-year-old child or a child, kills his older sister on Halloween, gets locked up for 15 years. Like, I have no interest in seeing that again right now. I'll just go back and watch 78. Do something different. Don't change the DNA, but like that great idea that I had about the film noir, you know? Anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right. I think I've got all the super chats. I don't think I've missed anything. Let me just check here. I don't believe I have. No, I have not. Okay, good. Very good, very good, very good, very good. All right, folks, just take a couple more here. Davey Deathray says, my Pamela theory is that she is responsible for Jason's death. In her memory, you can see Jason calling to her for help. She let him die, but blames the teens due to her guilt. What a fascinating perspective, right? And what again, that's some real drama there. That's some stakes. That's interesting. You know, it's interesting. I think there's meat on the bone there, and I think it would be fascinating. All right, folks, listen, that is going to do it for me here on this episode of McRae Live. I want to thank, of course, my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you for doing what you guys do. I really appreciate it. Thank you, of course, to all my members. Thank you for being members. Hey, if you're not a member yet, hit that join button and become a member and become part of the McCrazies for exclusive perks. And thank you to the super chats and the member chats that came in today as well. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. Hey, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this whole Friday the 13th fiasco. Do you agree with what I've said here today? Do you disagree with what I've said here today? Jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. I know I was hot off the presses. I know I was, but I just feel so passionately about this. So don't, I wasn't talking down on you. Hey, if you are a Friday the 13th fan and you are still set on, no, I don't care about any of that, I just want Jason killing kids at a camp and boobs. Hey, all power to you. That's how you feel. That's how you feel. I will have to respect it. I just think you're selling yourself short. I just think you're selling the franchise short, and I just think we're running a risk of any long-term viability or longevity in any sort of franchise on television or movies if that's all there is. I think there's got to be more meat on the bone. So jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to do it for me. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. All right, folks, that'll do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.